Thank you so much, Mary Ellen, and we start this 9 o'clock hour with breaking news in Lebanon County. North Londonderry Township police say that 3 people have died after a fire in Lebanon County. Right now, here's a live look at what's left of the scene on Patton Road in North Londonderry Township. Firefighters were called there just before 2 a.m. and were there for about 6 hours. Now, the cause of the fire is still under investigation by state police. And in western PA, multiple firefighters are recovering after being injured in a massive fire in Allegheny County. This fire happened in Homestead, which is just outside of Pittsburgh. And the fire began in one residential building before spreading to 2 others because of the extreme cold and windy conditions. Firefighters suffered non-life-threatening injuries. 8 residents were forced from their homes, but no one was injured. The fire was eventually brought under control after around 4 hours, and an investigation into the cause of the fire is underway.
This has been a Lancaster Toyota traffic report.
Now, are you looking for ways to cut costs during this holiday season? Well, one of the biggest strains on our wallets, all those subscriptions. Our national consumer correspondent Jeff Rawson tells us how to fix it. So much, Mary Ellen, and it's Thanksgiving week, and you know what that means. It's one of the busiest travel weeks of the year, and the FAA is forecasting around 250,000 flights over the next week, with Wednesday set to be the busiest day. WGAL's Jake Reyes has more from the Harrisburg International Airport.
With Thanksgiving being this week.
And in Harrisburg, it's been almost 6 months since that devastating fire shut down the Broad Street Market's brick building and displaced about 24 vendors. Now, according to the market, the fire has caused their revenue to drop by approximately 70%, and now they're trying to recover. Yesterday, they hosted the Great Broad Street Bake Off to help raise money for the market's revival. The event featured 3 main vendors and other Pennsylvania businesses, allowing them to showcase their culinary talents.
So we're hoping to unite the community, really light a fire, if you will, for positive change. And at the beginning of the day, our jar was empty. So you see that people are supporting and they're giving back to the Broad Street Market.
Now, this fundraiser comes after the market had planned to double the vendors' rent in order to make more money. That decision was scrapped. The financial future of the vendors at the Broad Street Market does remain up in the air, as it's estimated that the market is running at a deficit of nearly $10,000 a month. That was Jillian Hartman in Pittsburgh. And coming up on WGAL, the Phillies bats rose from the ashes last night in Phoenix, and they're 1 win away from their 2nd straight National League pennant. Sports is next when News 8 Today returns.
Now, WGAL News 8 Sports, powered by Xfinity Mobile.
And it is time for News 8 Sports, and the Major League Baseball postseason resumes as the division series get rolling today, and it starts in Baltimore this afternoon as the Orioles will open their best-of-5 American League division series against the Texas Rangers. And you can see those logos have been painted on the field at Camden Yards, and the Orioles, who lost 110 games just 2 years ago, are set to play in their first postseason game since 2016. Kyle Bradish will get the start for the O's, while Andrew Heaney goes for the Texas Rangers. First pitch from Camden Yards is set for 1 p.m. Meanwhile, in the National League, the Phillies are getting ready for Game 1 of their division series against the Atlanta Braves tonight. As you see, Phil's owner John Middleton was celebrating with the fans after the Phils swept the wild card series over the Miami Marlins on Wednesday night. He was tossing baseballs in the crowd while the team partied in the clubhouse. Now, this series will be a rematch of last year's NLDS, where the Phillies knocked off the then-defending world champion Braves in 4 games en route to their trip to the World Series. Ranger Suarez will get the start for the Phils against Atlanta's Spencer Strider. First pitch from suburban Atlanta is at 6:07 p.m. Game 2 will be Monday night, and then the series moves to Citizens Bank Park for Game 3 on Wednesday.
Tyron Wallace from the 25. Tyron Wallace breaks out of a tackle, takes it down the sideline. He stays in bounds. He stays on his feet. He takes it all the way and ends the game. There are no flags.
That was the stunning end to yesterday's game in Baltimore as the Ravens' Tyron Wallace took that punt 76 yards for the walk-off touchdown in Baltimore's 37-31 win over Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams tied it at the end of regulation with a field goal. As you saw there, Wallace housed that punt return with just 2:18 into overtime for the win. So that win, coupled with Kansas City's controversial loss to the Buffalo Bills and Jacksonville's loss to Cleveland, thrust the Ravens back into the #1 spot in the AFC. Looking at the AFC playoff picture, the 10-3 Ravens lead the Miami Dolphins by a half game. The Pittsburgh Steelers, by the way, after that loss to the Patriots on Thursday night, cling to the 6th spot in the AFC.
starting at 4 on WGAL News 8.
An email that claims you're about to be charged hundreds of dollars for something you didn't order. I'm on your side with how to spot this scam that tries to force you to respond.
Plus, find out the fate of the Broad Street Market in Harrisburg, why a planned town hall meeting to discuss its future was suddenly canceled.
A blanket of gray covers the region. We'll talk about when the sun returns and when more seasonable air sinks into the valley.
WGAL News 8 at 4, the team you turn to for coverage you can count on.
And more breaking news now. It's an impact day with the heavy rain that fell overnight. We are seeing flooding on many roads in the Susquehanna Valley.
That's right. And News 8's Jay Scott Smith is at one of those right now along Marietta Avenue in East Hemphill Township in Lancaster County. Jay, can you tell us what you're seeing?
Well, Regina and Matt, we're out near the Little Conestoga Creek, and actually you mentioned the impact day. One of the impacts is the water coming up onto the road here. Remember that when you're on the roads, it only takes about 6 inches of water to cause your car to stall, and anything more than that can actually float your vehicle. Now, Manheim Township Police have been out here ushering people away from this as they try to let the waters recede, and they're basically making sure that people don't drive too fast, cutting through these flood waters. As mentioned, it's an impact day. The sun is starting to come up, and even though the heaviest of the rain has actually made its way through, we are going to be seeing a lot of issues with flooding, so people are being told as this car comes in to be careful going through these flood waters. In Manheim Township, I'm Jay Scott Smith for WGAL News 8. Penn Medicine, which runs Lancaster General Health, is bringing back parts of their masking policy due to the rise in cases of the flu, RSV, and COVID-19. Now, first and foremost, Penn Medicine is also going to be requiring all healthcare workers to wear masks while caring for their patients. Here's a full breakdown of their policy changes. All patients and visitors are being encouraged to wear a surgical mask. Patients who tested positive for COVID in the last 10 days or who have symptoms of COVID, which include coughing, a fever, a sore throat, nasal congestion, they also must wear a mask. This smoldering pile of wood and bricks just 24 hours ago was a two-story vacant home. Now it's a pile of rubble after an early morning fire here on the 1700 block of Hilltown Road. The call came in just after 2 a.m., but by the time fire crews arrived here, the flames had largely taken down this 19th century house. 6 fire units arrived here on the scene to put the fire out, and neighbors described hearing a loud noise before flames lit up the night sky. We spoke with the home's owner who wanted to remain off camera, and he told us that this was a rental unit, and the previous tenant had recently moved out, and it had been vacant for a couple of months. They were in the process of renovating the home, and the owner says he got a call from a neighbor that the house was on fire earlier this morning.
The call came in, and when we arrived, there was heavy fire throughout the entire house. It was already through the roof. It was a 2-story house. It was unoccupied at the time of the fire. And again, like I say, it was fully involved on our arrival.
Now, due to the home being vacant, there were no injuries to anyone inside the building, as well as there were no injuries to firefighters. So while this house might be a total loss, it actually could have been a whole lot worse. It certainly feels like every day we're covering a different fire here in the Susquehanna Valley. And while we understand the trauma that brings to families who are dealing with such a devastating loss, we often don't think about the men and women in these uniforms who are also going in to help people in their time of need.
One of the things people don't realize is that firefighters, go through multiple trauma, right? So there's a house fire today, there's a house fire tomorrow, there's a vehicle accident, and all those things take its toll, and they build up on not just the firefighters, but also their families.
According to a 2022 FEMA study, approximately 20% of firefighters and EMTs are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. That report also said that an average of 100 firefighters die by suicide per year. In fact, the suicide rate for firefighters is 18 per 100,000, as compared to 15.3 per 100,000 for police officers and 13 per 100,000 for the general public. And the trauma can have a particular effect on younger firefighters.
We have a lot of young firefighters, 18, 20 years old, and this is trauma that they've never seen before, and they have a hard time dealing with it. Again, whether it's a fire where somebody loses everything, even if there's no loss of life, it's still very traumatic on the firefighter.
Now, organizations such as the National Volunteer Fire Council, as well as here in the Commonwealth at the Pennsylvania Office of the Fire Commissioner, do have mental health resources to help out any first responders who are in need. Plus, Hagel-Gans also noted that if you are a first responder and you're dealing with a lot of stress, sometimes the first and best outlet is to simply share how you feel with your fellow first responders. In Millersville, I'm Jay Scott Smith for WGAL News 8.